Healthy self-esteem. What does it mean to have healthy self-esteem? What chips away at our self-esteem, and what is the antidote to it? Welcome back. I'm Gila Ross, host of the Power Up podcast, where we share short, relatable ideas to upgrade your everyday life. And in this episode, together with the Wednesday Night Wisdom Group, we look at this all-important topic of self-esteem that we need in our life. Self-esteem, okay? What is involved in a healthy sense of a healthy self-esteem? And I think sometimes the easiest way to kind of answer the question is, if you have kids, what is a healthy self-esteem that you want your kids to develop? But really the answer is the same for ourselves. So if you can, I think sometimes it's easier to project it on other people, especially when they're little people, right? So go ahead, tell me, okay? If you're in Instagram, you can answer, and Vera, you can chime in at any point.
Having confidence to do something that they think they can't do.
Okay, having confidence to do something that they think they can't do. Okay.
Confidence that they can speak about something that they want to talk about.
Oh, like a voice almost. Yeah. Confidence to speak about what they want to speak about. We spoke about confidence in terms of not being shy, in terms of being able to speak up for things that are important to you, try new things, try things that you're not thinking. What else does it? What else, or sometimes it's easier to think of the question as, what don't you want them to struggle with? Or what don't you want when you think, like what are the struggles and whatever that people may have, right? Like those hypothetical people. What are the struggles that some hypothetical people have with self-esteem?
Depression.
Yes, depression is is very often connected to self-esteem.
Self-confidence.
Okay.
So about the way they look, or
beautiful, brilliant. So how do we want them to feel about how they look?
Happy within their own body.
Happy within their body.
Not worried about what people think about things they say and things they do.
Okay, being not worrying about what other people think, or so the flip side, I think, of what would the flip side of that be? If they're not worried, what would that look like?
Overconfident, cocky, and arrogant.
Oh, okay. so is that something we want? We don't.
No, it's something we don't want.
Right? As overconfident, arrogant. Okay.
No one likes an arrogant person.
Nope.
Because they don't care about anybody else other than themselves.
Okay, because they don't care about anyone else. That's a problem. Yeah. All right. So I tell you what I want to do in the next little while that we have. So it's actually very, very fascinating. But what I want to do is I want to look at the Jews in Egypt, right? And from the story of the Jews in Egypt, we're going to find out a few things. We're going to find out, number one. Oh, it's outside. Sorry, I wasn't sure where that noise was coming from. What the problems with low self-esteem are. What a healthy self-esteem should look like, and what the causes and what are the antidotes for a low self-esteem. Okay, so there's really two parts of the self-esteem that we want to kind of look at. Oops, no, I do not want to end it. Sorry. So when the Jews were in Egypt, right? Let's put ourselves in the mind of the Jews in Egypt. The Jews were in Egypt. They were suffering. They were struggling. They were oppressed. Life was terrible for them. Moses comes and says, "Listen, I spoke to God, and God is going to save you." Imagine, right? Hi Bev, you're in this most horrendous situation, right? And Moses comes and tells you, I've spoken to God, it's going to get better. What would your reaction be? What would your reaction be?
Now, currently, you're off your head.
Okay. Okay. So one reaction that someone could be is like, I don't believe you, right? Which pretty much what you're saying is I don't believe you, right? If I turned around to you and said, Sharon, things are going to get better, you're going to tell me, I don't believe you, right? What is another, anyone else would have a different reaction?
Relief.
Relief. Why was that relief be?
Because you've been told things are going to get better, so you would trust them. Trust
them and things. So we have, thank you, Sam, thank you, Sharon, because this is like exhibit A and exhibit B, right? Opposite ends of the spectrum. On the one hand, you have someone who responds with, wow, right? That gives me hope. That gives me something to look forward to. And someone that's like disbelief. What was the Jews' reaction? So we're told, the Torah tells us right out, and it says that the Jews did not believe Moses. Why? Why would someone react in disbelief versus hope? What's the difference? What is the person who is reacting in disbelief? What's different about them than the person that's acting with relief? Not trusting, not believing, yes. But why are they not trusting and why are they not believing?
Because you said he's spoken to Hashem. It depends. At this case, have they actually seen anybody? Have they heard Hashem? In this case, are they just hearing somebody saying, I've spoken to Hashem, and it'll be like, really?
Okay, so maybe they don't believe the message. However, Sam believed my message, so it's not just me. I know you're just trying to blame everything on me, but it's not just me, because Sam believed me. Sam thought it was wonderful when I said that to her.
I can't wait.
Exactly. Right? Okay, so and look, the truth is, I think this is something, if you think about it, I don't know if anyone has ever experienced it, but I definitely and I speak to a lot of people, right? And you hear different attitudes, right? You know, sometimes, like, it's interesting because in my coaching, I speak to a lot of people, and I find that there are people that kind of are like, they believe that things are going to change and things are going to get better. They're ready to take action. They're ready to do what it is. And there are people that don't, right? Now, the Torah actually tells us why the Jews didn't believe, okay? And it says that the Jews didn't believe because of kotzer ruach, which basically means they were short of breath. There was like a shortness of breath. What does it kind of mean? It means that, like, if you imagine it, right? If you imagine someone who's out of breath, right? Short of breath, if you've ever worked out really, really hard, right? You're at that point, like, don't start asking me about things then, right? Don't start talking to me, because all I'm doing is trying to get through the day, right? All I'm doing is trying to get through. And they kind of, they had lost faith and they had lost belief. But what's fascinating is not that they had lost faith and belief that God would save them, that God was able to save them, but they had lost faith and belief that God would save them. What's the difference? Is that they thought to themselves, and we see this nowadays, they thought to themselves, look, we are in Egypt, right? We have been here for so long. We are so far away from God. We are so far away from spirituality. Like, seriously, is God really going to come and save us? Right? And we have this, right? Right? You know, people that lose hope. A lot of times it's not that they lose hope that things can get better. It's a lot of times they lose hope that they can get to the better place, right? So the very, very first step for self-esteem, right? At the end of the day, what we learn from the Egyptians from the Jews in Egypt, is that the reason why they lost hope, and as Julie said, you know, that link between depression and self-esteem, is because they had lost faith in themselves. Right? It's not even about God. It's about God. Like, is God really going to save me? Is God really going to listen to my prayers? Is God really going to step in? Like, they had lost faith in themselves. So what does God respond to them? He says to them, he says, B'ni Bechori Yisrael, which means my child, my firstborn, Israel. What does it mean, right? Imagine you have a child, right? Now, fast forward, if your kid's a teenager, you may be able to relate to this a little bit. If your kid's young, whatever, you know, imagine yourself as a teenager. Okay, whatever, not yourself, but imagine, we've heard the horror stories of teenagers, right? Imagine a parent has a teenager that is just one of those rebellious, obnoxious teenagers that is just giving their kids, their parents, a run for their money, right? Sorry? Can anyone relate?
What,
Remember?
Rihanna, you mean?
Sorry?
Rihanna, you mean?
Oh, not naming things, right? You know, think about your worst teenage moments, right? Then multiply it by 10, right? Now, in midst of all of this, the kid calls up the parent, right, and says, "Mum, Dad, I need your help." What's the parent going to do?
Not I need money.
No, I need your help. I need your help.
Panic.
Sorry?
Panic.
And then what are you going to do?
Help them.
You'd want to help them.
You're going to be there, right? No questions asked, right? You're like, it's like, how can I help you? Right? That's the question kind of thing, right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how big the argument was beforehand, right? It's like, you're my child, right? At the end of the day, we love each other and I will be there for you, right? Or the parent says to the child, I love you and I will be there for you. You call me and you tell me you need me. I will love, I love you and you're worthy of it and I will be there for you. And that's what God responds to the Jews. When the Jews feel like, seriously, God's going to save us? God says, don't forget this. You're my child, right? You know, my love for you is more than the love a parent has for a child, right? Unfortunately, we know that there are parents whose love for their children is conditional, right? On you know, as long as you behave a certain ways, you know, that's not God's love for us. God's love for us is unconditional. Right? It says, I want you to know that no matter how far you go or where you go, whatever, or how far you stray from where you think you should be, you are inherently worthy, right? So that is the first stage of self-esteem, is understanding that you are inherently worthy, right? You're inherently worthy. Now, if you think about it, I don't know if anyone has seen a baby recently. Right? Anyone seen a baby recently?
Yeah.
Yes.
Babies and bagels this morning.
Babies and bagels this morning, maybe more than one. Right? Have we ever seen a baby with low self-esteem? No? No. There's no such thing, right? A baby is born, they don't think like, oh, you know, is it yeah, sorry? No, there's absolutely not, right?
If only they know what lies ahead.
Okay, so what happens? What happens to that child, that baby that's born with that like complete sense of self-acceptance and self-love, and you know, if you ever see like the, do you know?
It grows up and realises reality.
It grows up. What happens as it grows up? What happens as it goes to school? You're right. What happens?
External influences, isn't it?
Yes, and what
They have
particular
more
type?
responsibility.
What particular type of external input really damages a person's self-esteem?
Social media.
Yes.
Just negativity.
Bullying.
But again, the bullying, negativity, social media. Anything else? Or what's the essence of what you're all saying, right?
Negative attitude.
Yes, but where does that negative attitude come from? Right, babies don't have negative attitudes.
No,
They're either,
everybody
you
else
know,
has negative attitude, and therefore they pick up on it.
right. But where does that come from? Because they were also babies once, right? What is that source of that loss? And a lot of time the negative attitude comes from the low self-esteem, right? If we're getting a little bit off topic and a little bit deep here. Let's try and keep it simplistic. Where does it come from? You all mentioned different types of difficulties, right? And that is unfortunately what happens is that when a person encounters difficulties in life, the danger is that a person starts to internalize the difficulties and see it as an indication of who I am, right? So for example, a kid goes to school, right? And they struggle with maths. Instead of thinking to themselves, oh, maths is not my strong point, a lot of times what happens is the kid sits there in school and thinks, oh, I'm dumb, right? Or a kid goes to school and the teacher says something not nice. And instead of the kid realizing the truth, which is that the teacher acted in an inappropriate way, the kid believes it, right? Or, you know, the kid goes to school and the kid you know, the other kids are teasing them. And instead of the kid realizing that, hold on a second, these are immature children that don't have life skills and social skills and are not thought out and are not fully developed people, the kid starts to think maybe there's something wrong with me. As we grow up, sometimes this continues, right? So for example, sometimes someone is single for a long time, right? And instead of thinking, you know what, different things happen to different people at different times, they start to think, hold on a second, maybe there's something wrong with me because I haven't yet found the person I'm supposed to be with, right? The same thing with people that go through fertility struggles, right? Instead of the person recognizing that different things happen at different times for different people, the person starts to feel a little bit less than, right? Maybe there's something not complete with me, right? Maybe there's something that's wrong with me because I don't have it. And sometimes, you know, the language that we kind of use reinforces this, right? Because, you know, sometimes we give very simplistic answers to people, right? Someone is struggling to find a job and you tell them, oh, do X, Y, Z and you'll find a job, right? Whereas we know in reality it's not that simple. And what happens is when the person does X, Y, Z and they don't necessarily find a job because life is not that simple and different things happen to different people at different times, they think, oh, maybe something's wrong with me, right? So this is the source and really the struggle with the cause of low self-esteem is that when difficulties happen, a person sees it as an indication of who they are, right? Which is not, okay? So what's the antidote to it? How do we counteract this? Because the reality is every single one of us has difficulties, right? Every single one of our kids are going to have difficulties, right? And we need to be able to navigate those difficulties without it affecting our sense of self, right? Without it affecting our self-esteem. So what's the antidote? So Rav Nachman from Breslov tells a beautiful idea. We're coming up to the Hebrew month of the calendars. There's first comes Shavat, then comes Adar. Adar is the month when Purim comes, and it's the month where there's where the theme of the month is happiness. We're supposed to increase our joy in the month of Adar. Before that comes Shavat. Shavat, the symbol of Shavat is a bucket, right? Why? Because for those of us in Manchester, in the UK, we know it rains a lot, right? It's the winter month, it rains a lot. But he says really it's a bucket because God wants to give us He wants to give us buckets of blessings, right? He wants to give us good things, right? Now, what does rain do?
Things grow.
Yes, thank you. I was going to say makes us wet. I thought someone was going to say makes us wet. We all need a little Sam in our life, right? The truth is, rain makes it grow. Yeah, it gets us wet. It's uncomfortable, whatever. But at the end of the day, if there's no rain, we'd be in big trouble. Right? We would be in really big trouble because it's the source of everything. Does anyone know what happens when you plant a seed?
It germinates and grows.
Okay, but what does it do before it grows? And what does it do in the soil? When you plant it in the ground. This is actually interesting. Before it hits roots. Does anyone know what it does?
Does it not feed the grain? Let me know.
The ground, it gets its nutrients from the ground, but what does it do first?
Sign up at the door.
It was, but there should be.
Splits open.
Okay, before it does that, is there no one
Absorbs
at the
water.
door? Hold on a second. Let me just grab the door. Sorry, everyone. I will be back. I'll let you Google the answer. New keys. Okay, so where were we up to? Okay, so what? Anyone Googled it while I was out?
No. But
Oh, come on. It actually rots in the ground, right? It disintegrates, it rots in the ground, right? Now, the first it rots, right? And sometimes that, you know, like the rain, right? The challenges in our life, what does it do, right? It helps us grow, right? It develops the right nutrients in our life and it prepares us for the blessings that we are going to get later on in life. right? So the first thing that we have to do, right? Shavat comes first. This idea of rain is learning to decrease the sadness, right? And how do we do that? Is that when we see those difficulties, firstly, we have to learn to stop seeing the difficulties as an indication of who we are, because it's not, right? It really, really is not an indication of who we are. But to see it as a sign of actually God's love, right? That He's sending us kind of the rain that we need in order to grow and develop within ourselves. And he actually says, I can't remember who says this, but he actually says that a very good practice to develop is to, when you see rain, right? Not most of us, I'll talk to myself. I see rain, I think, oh no, I'm gonna get wet, hate the rain, right? Like whatever. Instead, see it, wow. You know, this is a sign of God's love. He's sending rain. This is going to help things grow, right? And then then we can come to the month of Adar, where we can increase our happiness, increase our happiness. Okay, so let's sum up where we are right now, because we're not done yet. Okay, we've only really spoken about the first step of self-esteem, right? The first step of self-esteem is recognizing that you are worthy, right? It doesn't matter what you do or how far you go, you are worthy because you know, just because you have a divine soul, right? And to the oftentimes what chips away at it is when we have difficulties in life and we kind of internalize those difficulties as a indication of who we are. So the antidote to do that is to kind of see those difficulties as things that God is sending in order to help us develop, and it's not an indication of who I am. It's absolutely not an indication. It's not because I'm bad or because not. It's because, you know, we don't know why it is, okay? But there's a second step of self-esteem, and because this is not on its own is not enough. What's missing? Okay, this is a hard question. And you know, if someone just thinks they're worthy, and right, thinks that they're worthy, thinks they're great, would you think that person is a healthy sense of self, or is there something that's missing?
Something missing.
Okay, what's missing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just 50-50.
Okay, it's a good guess, definitely a good guess. Okay, so I'll give you an example of someone who thought they were great. And this was Pharaoh, right? And the Midrash actually says that Pharaoh, he was the king of Egypt, and when he used to go and relieve himself in the Nile very, very early in the morning. Why? Because he wanted everyone to think that he was a god, right? That he was perfect. Right, so he didn't want anyone to think that he had human flaws, right? What's the problem with that?
That's not true.
It's not true.
Everyone does.
And Joe, what was that?
Everyone has got.
Exactly, right? Only God is perfect. All the rest of us, we all have, we none of us are perfect. Sorry to be the one to break it to you. None of us are perfect, right? But why is it a problem? And I'll show you why it was a problem. So the 10 plagues came. Does anyone know? And the 10 plagues are fascinating, right? Because each plague that came corresponded to the way the the Egyptians treated the Jews, right? So there was kind of like a lesson to them, to the Egyptians and to Pharaoh, that they should have taken and said, look, this is the way the Jews, this is the way you've mistreated the Jews. Take a lesson. What was Pharaoh's lesson? What lesson did he take from it? Did he take any lesson from it? Did he kind of sit up and say, "Ooh, maybe we haven't treated the Jews so well"? No, he didn't. He didn't take any lesson. Why?
Didn't want to.
Why didn't he want to?
He thought he was above everyone else.
He thought he was perfect, right? And because he thought he was perfect, he wasn't open to growth. He wasn't open to learn and to develop and to become better. And I think when we talk about arrogance and overconfidence, that's really what we're talking about, right? Which again stems from, a lot of times it stems from not having step one in place, right? Because how is a person supposed to deal with it? How is a person supposed to deal with it? Is we're not supposed to see things as coincidence, right? Instead, we're supposed to use things as learning opportunities, right? The Gemara, the Talmud talks about a person who experiences suffering, right? Does anyone know how would you define suffering? What type of thing is suffering?
Pain.
Okay. Pain.
Grief.
Grief. What else?
War.
Sorry? War? Yeah, that's definitely. Poverty. So you're going to be shocked what the Talmud talks about. It says if someone puts their hand in their pocket to take out a £1 coin and they take out a 10p coin, that is suffering. What does it mean? It's a moment
You got less money than you thought you had.
Yeah, but the Gemara is not even saying that you have less. It's that you took the wrong coin out, right? Okay. Why? Because it's a moment of irritation, right? And the Gemara is saying that a person can live such a mindful, intentional life that you have a moment like this and you could use it as an opportunity for learning. And what's fascinating is that sometimes people, all of us, I think, and I should talk to myself here and no one else, but we try to kind of ignore things or we try to kind of dodge things, right? And I want to say something very carefully. When we talk about learning from things, it's not a question of trying to pinpoint why something happens, because we live in an age where we have no prophecy. We don't know why things can happen. But the question is, what can I learn from this? So Rav Chaim Shmulevitz, who was a big rabbi, tells a story of a woman who came to him. She said, my husband broke his leg. She says, so I use it as a time to introspect and to become better. And she says, so what I decided that the thing is that I'm going to stop giving him a drink before he prays, because the law is, Jewish law is, that a person is not supposed to drink before they pray except water, coffee, tea, you can have milk in it, right? But the idea, unless you're weak, in which case you can, but really that the law is that you're supposed to pray the first thing in the morning, right? And Rav Chaim Shmulevitz was blown away. Why? Because he said, this woman, a week or two beforehand had come to him and said she had a daughter who was looking for a spouse, and someone had suggested someone who limped, right? And she said no, because I don't want someone who, a son-in-law who has a limp, right? And Rav Chaim Shmulevitz says, seriously, you have your husband broke his leg, and instead of immediately thinking, hold on a second, my husband broke his leg and that shows me that there's nothing intrinsically wrong with a person who limps, and maybe I should evaluate the way I think and look at people, you start finding some obscure thing that maybe it could be that, it's obvious, right? Do you hear what I'm saying? Rav Chaim Shmulevitz was shocked. It's instead of trying, and sometimes we do this, we look at you I don't know, right? Someone's, I'm trying to think of another example, right? There's another example that another rabbi gives, that, a bank manager came to him distraught, absolutely distraught. And he said, I had this really, really good job and I just got fired. And I can't understand why it happened to me. I absolutely cannot understand why it happened to me. And again, we can't understand, we don't know the reasons exactly why it happened to me. But Rav Zilberstein was the rabbi in the story, and he says he was shocked because just a couple of weeks ago, someone had come to him, a guy who worked for that bank, right? Who worked under that bank manager, who had just been fired because he stuttered, right? And the bank manager didn't want someone in his bank who stuttered, right? And he's again, how can you sit there and say, how can you have such a lack of self-awareness, right? If there's an attitude, and I think what is going on here is a lot of times when we're hit with things, it's very easy to either blame other people or to find obscure reasons maybe I should wear a red bracelet around my thing, instead of saying, hold on a second, right? Let me make sure that the basics are covered, right? Let me make sure that the way I'm treating other people is okay, right? Let me make sure that, I'm doing what God wants from me, right? Then we can look at the obscure things or whatever, right? It's kind of the analogy they give is that if you're ever driving and in England, right, in a field, and you see like a big brown animal with a tail, what are you going to think it is? In England.
Cow.
Well, it's brown with a big fluffy tail.
Fox.
Not a fox, it's not fluffy. Okay, whatever. It's a horse, right? I mean, it could be, but it's much bigger than a fox, okay? And it's not quite as fluffy.
You like your descriptions need that.
I know. I'm not very good, right? You're not going to start thinking, and let's just say it's a black and white thing, right? You're not going to start thinking it's a zebra, right? Or you shouldn't start thinking, maybe a zebra would fit the same description, but like, it's more likely, first rule out that it's a fox. Sorry.
If it's black and white, yeah.
Okay, let's do this, right? You're in England, it's a horse, right? Possibly a zebra could fit the same description, but first rule out that it's a horse and then start thinking maybe it's a zebra, right? Yes, zebras are prettier than a horse, right? And yes, it's easier to wear a red bracelet or to do, say something or blame other people, but at the end of the day, if there's an obvious lesson that you can learn from it about how, you're treating other people, about how you are living your Jewish life, then maybe that's a lesson we should take from something instead of trying to go out there. So really, if we started with the question of what's a healthy self-esteem, right? And there's really two parts to it. There's number one is we have to value ourselves. Right, we have to understand that we are worthy and that the difficulties that we go through are not an indication of who we are, right? And when a person has that, it becomes easier to do the second thing, which is to use life as an opportunity for growth, right? Because when you can look at this and say, like, instead of thinking, oh my gosh, this happened, I must be a terrible person, but actually this happened, I don't know why, right? And there are many reasons why difficulties happen in life. But what can I learn from it, right? Maybe that's something that I've done, right? Again, for example, if you go for a job interview and you get there half an hour late and you don't get the job and you left too late, like maybe there's a lesson there that you should leave on time. Next time, leave a little bit more time, right? Exactly. So sometimes there is, and even if there isn't an obvious lesson, right? Sometimes you go through things and there isn't a lesson. But usually when you think about it, something pops into your head, right? Something that there's some sort of thing, that lesson that you can learn from it. So that really is the healthy self-esteem. It's that step number one, valuing yourself, and step number two, which is really being open to growth and understanding that you're not perfect and it's fine to not be perfect, right? You don't have to be perfect to be good enough, right? And we can use what happens to us in life as learning opportunities. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Please check the show notes for my current offer of a free one-to-one call and how to book it. And meanwhile, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out. And share the love with anyone who would benefit. Thank you, have a great day, and happy Hanukkah.